files very securely, so you can designate a specific version of a file, or if you need to send someone information, so you sign into the web portal, search for a specific file you need, and you could share, which essentially is recovering for somebody, or just to give them access to a file. And then manage. Pulse is an agent-based system, so it's not network-based. So even if you have extremities in the network, you could install Pulse on any machine that's running the backup. And then Pulse will then communicate with the Pulse server that you would log into, and gives you the ability to monitor backups as far as what events are happening. Is the backup running? Was a backup policy, meaning a backup set and schedule, was that applied correctly or not? What's happening with the system? And then it goes even deeper to go into actual session details. So when you get into the Pulse management system, you can actually look at session details, see the number of files transferred, number of files that failed to transfer for whatever reason, and then it pulls the log file from the backup, so you can actually dig into the backup log right there from the cloud without having to get access to that machine. So it's really critical when you have a large number of users that you have a nice management tool like Pulse, where you can identify where there may be issues or whatever else may be going on. Again, so the different features about our software and things that make us really stand out is security. So we have a 3-tiered encryption process when we do a backup. So we first encrypt the data at 256-bit AES before we transfer. We transfer for secure 128-bit SSL, and then we're storing the data at an additional 1024-bit AES encryption once it's at the first data center, and we replicate the data to a completely geographically separate data center. So some of these functions slow down the process and increase our costs, but for the sake of security, we're really top-notch in that respect. Quick question for those of you who are just coming on. I have not gone through what we do for SQL or Exchange, but I'll take that up at the end when we get into questions. So SOS is a flat file system, so it provides you a very easy way of backing up files on a regular basis from either a user machine or from a file server. And so it's really nice that you have a system that anyone can really use. If you're familiar with a web browser and you can pull up your web email, that's generally the qualification you need to be able to sign into your software or sign into the web portal online, search for a file, and recover or share. We've made it very simple because simplicity is a big part of security. But again, with the security, the local encryption and the compression we do, that's some system speed. So could we process files faster locally if we weren't as secure? Yes, but we choose security. And again, that's what backup's all about, is about security. We don't limit you to how many devices you can run backups from. It's all based on how many gigs the account is allocated. And you can run backups from as many machines as you like, which again is nice that you don't have to relicense machines. When you're replacing machines, it makes it a lot nicer. If you're doing test recovery, it makes it a lot nicer because you don't have to go to the machine that's licensed for it, as you do with most other systems. We're able to recover from a limited number of computing devices and a limited number of versions. So we store all the versions for free again. So it's a really nice functionality. And we're the only one in the market where you can literally refresh back to 2008 when you first got the system and first ran a backup and recover files from that point. And we never purge the data, so it's always going to remain on our servers like that. We are Sarbanes-Oxley compliant, HIPAA compliant, SAS 70 audited. So that means that we're a perfect solution for law firms, accounting firms, healthcare companies, because we do meet all the required securities for that. So here's some more functions we have. We have a mobile browser, so mobile access, and we do have an iPhone app. Right now it's not available for partners, but the iPhone app is in the iTunes store. It's really terrific. You should go check it out. The free local backup is nice because, again, it's a true solution has multiple strategies and backups. So that means you're going to have a local backup. It means you're going to have an online backup. It means you're going to have some sort of bare metal recovery option or VM solution, which is really the trend today. It means you're also going to have some type of file and folder solution. And that gives you the ability to react and mitigate to every type of data loss. So being that the most common is user error actually accounted for 30% of all the damages they recorded in their study. And being that human error is typically pretty low in its scope, usually you're talking about a single file or a single folder, it means that it's happening very, very rapidly. So the best way to position yourself to react to user-level error, which is very sporadic and very frequent, is to have a very frequent style of backup. And with our system, especially at a user level, specific workstation or laptop, the backup sets are typically such that you can run backups every hour, and it doesn't affect the user's productivity or the machine's speed. So it's a really great solution for that aspect of data loss that usually goes unaccounted for. Typically, solutions are all server-centric. If it's on the server, it gets backed up. If it's not on the server, then it's up to the user to be responsible and do that, which is no longer necessary to have that kind of Rambo-esque expendable data mentality. So here's some more functions. Again, unlimited version history is huge with accounting and law firms. Accountants and lawyers love to hear this because a lot of their compliance has to do with retention. So a lot of these firms have large libraries of drives and tapes holding all these years and years of data that they need to retain. And often those drives are dead, which is sad when that discovery is made. But our system is terrific for that because now you can have your most common, your most recent files locally, and then keep your archive offsite. Any questions on the functions? What about ghosting or cloning a drive? Good question. Our system is a flat file system, so we are working towards some add-ons for some plugins for SQL and Exchange, and things like Active Directory, bare metal. Right now we're looking for a first release of that at the end of this calendar year, so we're excited about that. Right now all we do is we are flat file systems. So we take files that don't need any type of specific packaging. For instance, if you call into it and you ask them about backing up QuickBooks, they'll tell you you need to run the native backup. I know a lot of our partners have said that they just grab the company file. I haven't performed a backup or recovery of just a company file for QuickBooks, so I can't say specifically, but Intuit says you have to go through the native backup process. Most backups are really good. And Jason brings up a good point. What about the upload bandwidth and the fact that we don't gate it? So this is very true. So we're actually the fastest backup in the market. Most of our competitors have some type of cap that they limit you at as far as how quickly you can upload or how much you can upload per day. We don't have that cap. So for instance, here in this office in LA, we have an 80 meg pipe. I'm throttled down by our IT admins to about 40 megs. And when I run a backup, especially an initial backup, I see transfer rates as high as 30, 35 megs per second because, again, the SSL closes the pipe a little bit, but it's really terrific. As far as the speed of backup for the initial backup, it varies across the board. There's local hardware requirements because there is a lot of processing of files in the initial backup, and then it has to do with the types of files that are being processed. So you want to make sure that those of you with 2003 servers with the 32-bit, they're limited to about 4 gigs of RAM. That's just about enough to run the operating system. So if you upgrade that to 64-bit and load it up with some more RAM, you'll see much better performance in the initial backup. Subsequent backups are really nice. Again, the set and forget. All right, a lot of questions here. Let me see if I can get back up to the top here. All right, I got Jason saying that we're underestimating the time it takes to do a factory refresh. If you have a kickback date, that's terrific. I'm not at all saying that that's not a valuable strategy to have in place. I'm just saying that more often times in the scheme of recovery, you're doing a file level recovery. And this is not my opinion. This is just coming from studied information and really surveyed from you all. Anyone find that they're doing full system recoveries more often than individual file recoveries? Well, I'm waiting for your responses on that. Does the archive feature include Exchange Mail? So right now we don't have any kind of Exchange plugin. We're expecting to have Exchange SQL, Active Directory, those types of capabilities at the end of this calendar year. It was mentioned from one of our guys, thanks Jason, that Mozy and Carbonite can take up to 21 days to get a full backup. You know, online backup is one of those things where you're limited by bandwidth, but it doesn't mean that the provider should limit your bandwidth. We don't limit your bandwidth, so if you have a big, strong pipe, you can do that. And there's also a really easy way where if your customer doesn't have a lot of bandwidth or a lot of machine power, you look in our knowledge base, it's a very simple way for you, the partner, to take advantage of your hardware. For example, you could have a dedicated server in your office just for doing initial backups. So the only CPU that's being used is for the backup, and that way you can really speed up the process of that initial backup. How do we handle PST files? Terrifically. Select your PST file, put it on a schedule, it'll back it up. It does delta level backups of the file, which a delta level backup is a block level incremental backup versus a file level incremental backup. So a lot of the consumer services, Mozy and Carbonite, do file level, meaning if file A changes, therefore process and backup file A again. Our system goes a step further and says file A has changed. What at a block level about file A has changed? So to understand that, there's so many cups in a pint, pints in a quart, quarts in a gallon. There's so many bits in a byte, bytes in a block, blocks in a file. So it means that instead of taking, let's say we give it an hour per gig, let's just have that as a rough estimate, an hour per gig of data to back up. Your PST file is 1 gig. That means it takes you about an hour to back up that file. Every subsequent day with a system that doesn't have a delta level backup procedure, it's going to be about an hour just to back up the new version of that PST file. With our system, it may only take 10 or 15 minutes. So it's very, very fast. I have a quick question. Are you going to partner with a hardware vendor to provide something like Mozy Connect? Right now, that's not in the discussion. I'm not even that familiar with Mozy Connect. For Windows PCs, is VSS used at all? Yes, VSS is used for when we do for our open file support, and it's also going to be what we use for SQL. So, of course, with new operating system changes, that changes. Does this scenario work well with Hyper-V setups? Well, yeah. I mean, anytime you have Hyper-V is the hardware plugin, so you can hard boot machines, right? Or is that the virtual machine setting you're asking about?